You're listening to Meet Katie on Lowering the Tone.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Lowering the Tone with me, Meet Katie. Hopefully you all know what to expect. 2.5 hours of underground electronica. This time round I caught up with Syd Gris, one of the founding members of the legendary sound camp Opulent Temple. Anyone that's been to Burningman will know who they are. That's at the back end of the show. Right, we finally got the website up and running. How long did that take? And it's loweringthetone.london. Head over there. Remember, you need to subscribe if you want a track listing for the show and be added to the main list. You should also check out, there's a forum button. If you click on that, it will take you to the Facebook group where you can chat with like-minded people about anything that's raised in the show, in the interviews, or just want to talk about music, or even suggest some music for me to play. Talking of music, let's get on with the show.
This is Ben Coda and you're listening to Lowering the Tone with Meet Katie.
Few shouts. Elaine, Teresa, Jason F, Cherry, MCG. It was great seeing you all last week in Hong Kong. I wish I could have stayed longer. And I'm sorry that I had the flu. It's pretty rough, wasn't I? And also Rudy and all the crew at Source Monbeat in Montpellier. Thank you for a cracking weekend that you supplied for me and Ben Coda a couple of weeks back. That was awesome. Let's get back to the music.
Papo, you know Papo, Papo, you know Papo, Papo, you know Papo, Papo, you know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you. Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo. You know I want you, boy, don't you feel it too? You know I need the love that's deep inside of you. Deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo, deep inside of you, Papo, deep inside of you, know Papo. it, don't you feel it too? You know I need the love that's deep inside of you. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. You know I want you, boy, don't you feel it too? You know I need the love that's deep inside of you. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. You know I want you, boy, don't you feel it too? You know I need the love that's deep inside of you. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. Deep inside of you, Papa. Deep inside of you, know Papa. You know I want you, boy, don't you feel it too? You know I need the love that's deep inside of you. To make a kilowatt, baby.
for all the great feedback for the last episode, in particular the techno that I was playing. The next couple of tracks are dedicated to you. It's something you can get your teeth into. This is Lee Coombs, and you're listening to Meet Katie on Lowering the Tone.
Hi, this is Chevy One. You're listening to Meet Katie on Lowering the Tone.
So I have a fair few shouts to give out. All of these people kindly donated some money to the bank. Okay. Richard Goddard, Anthony Smith, Louise O'Donnell. Hi Louise. Mike Bulmer, Brendan Rowan, Muriel Price, Simon Wesley, Peter Thompson, Jonathan Rose, Helen Smedley, Craig Edwards, Ben Carstairs, Johnny Hunter, Thomas Sherland, David Dixon, DJ Mon, or Monet, I think, Mark Preska, David Hartlin, Lee Sadler, Devon Roy, and Griffin Mink. Thank you so much for all your generous contributions. If you head over to the new website, that's loweringthetone.london, there's a donate button. There's also a Bandcamp button on there, so it will explain how you can help in that capacity. But, as always, if you want to get involved with the show, please just share the link. That is a massive help. Okay, don't forget we got an interview with Syd Gris coming up. But before then, we got some more music. You're listening to Lowering the Tone with me, Meet Katie. Track from me and Dopamine called Believe in Me. You can pick this up free at the Lot 49 Bandcamp page. Alternatively, you can buy it on Beatport.
Limit.
listening to Meet Katie on Lowering the Tone.
last track, Radio Slave's seminal Deer in the Headlights. Remember, if you want to track list into this show, you need to go to loweringethetone.london, hit subscribe.
The soul of a DJ that wants to sound.
In the headlights.
thank you for listening to me for the last hour. Hope you enjoyed it. Been a bit of a mixed bag this session. I think that's about it. Let's get into the interview with Syd Gris.
Exclusive.
Okay, I'd like to welcome Syd Gris, my good friend, to Lowering the Tone.
Thanks for having me.
That's all right. We're doing it in my friend's front room. Thank you, Nicole and Memo, for letting us do it here. We all have the sickness, so I do apologise in advance if I cough, splutter, or make kind of snivelling noises.
I apologise if I cuss.
You're allowed to swear. It's fine.
Fucking
right. Thank you for coming, and we're straight off the back of New Year's Eve party at New Bohemian, is it?
Bohemia.
The Armoury, which was massive. Yeah, it's one of the biggest parties I've played at for you.
Yep.
2 stages, a lot of acrobats and other sort of visual artists going on. Stanton Warriors, Scumfrog. It was a collaboration with you and some other
Vaudeville Society.
Yeah.
And some Burningman camps such as Opulent Temple, District, and the Dusty Rhino.
Yeah, it was huge. It was huge.
Yeah, it was a great night.
Yeah, it was a
Let's not forget Ben Coda.
And Ben Coda, of course. Right. So let's dive straight into it. You're a DJ, a promoter, obviously famous for your involvement with Opulent Temple, but your career dates back long before Opulent Temple. So let's just go back over a little bit of history of where you come from, how you got involved with the San Francisco scene, and where you kind of started.
Sure. I grew up in the desert near Joshua Tree in Southern California. During my high school days, I moved to Santa Cruz, which is about 90 miles south of San Francisco, to go to college, and then moved up to San Francisco to go to graduate school, where I got a doctorate in clinical psychology. Because my other life, I'm a child psychologist.
Yeah, smart ass.
That's right. And during my time in grad school is when I first got introduced to the San Francisco clubbing scene, which obviously had been raging, unbeknownst to me, since the 90s. But I was more into rock and alternative and grunge and that kind of sequence of music through the 80s and 90s. But a couple friends dragged me out after a night of working because they knew I needed to get out. And a monster was born.
Who was on the San Francisco scene back then?
This was 1998, and Spunday was really big. They were kind of the pioneers, one of the pioneers in the San Francisco scene for bringing out really a lot of British and Euro DJs along the kind of global underground vein of that time.
Right.
So Sasha Digweed, that whole progressive trance into progressive house scene. Yeah. Carl Oakey, Dave Seaman,
when it was
Nick Warren. Yeah, that whole vein. And so that was the music that I was first exposed to, that kind of progressive house, progressive trance of the late 90s. And that certainly shaped my application of what I was trying to do with events when I first started throwing events, because the first Opal event was in 2001. It was a benefit for the group home I worked for at the time, which was a nonprofit group home working with crazy teenagers at San Francisco General.
All right.
Yeah. And I say crazy in a loving fashion. They were damaged, traumatized urban youth who thus became crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So our first benefit was Opal and Spunday Presents. That was the birth of Opal. Yeah.
Jesus, is that the same sort of era or is that before, like the Wicked Crew, like that?
It was post Wicked Crew's kind of peak. That first event we did was in 2001, and I think Wicked has been going a long time. They still pop up and do events every once in a while, but I think late 90s was more kind of their full moon Santa Cruz beach rave legendary parties that they did.
Yeah, because I remember first time I came here, that that sort of tribal house was called rave.
Yes.
Whereas it was totally different from where I was from, but
Right.
it sort of suited it because it was quite a mass audience would converge on their parties.
A very San Francisco sound.
Yeah.
Garth,
Yeah.
and Yano, and Simon.
And then moved over to H Foundation, like that sort of got involved afterwards. I suppose it's all West Coast, really, isn't it? West Coast house.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they were interesting days.
Mm-hmm.
So once you sort of decided to, so you went straight in throwing parties. Was you DJing at these first parties or just promoting?
I was putting myself on the DJ lineup, which means that I did DJ, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And so that translated into me playing the chill area.
Right.
Because a lot of our events back then had chill areas. And so mixing down tempo and other kind of more chill tracks,
Right.
there wasn't too much pressure to mix. So that's how I got started. And then my girlfriend at the time bought me my first set of turntables and started buying vinyl, and finally knew what I was doing enough to play more up-tempo stuff.
Right. Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, chill out stuff's making a comeback.
Yeah,
Have you noticed?
absolutely.
It's getting back on the map,
And
with events.
It is. And some so-called dance music is so chill, I can't tell the difference.
Yeah, when deep house becomes so deep, it loses the house element.
Exactly. Yes. Down the K-hole.
Yeah, that's it. So from there, I can only talk about my own experience with you. I think I played for you. That must have been
2005.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, good.
Halloween.
Yeah, good 10 years ago.
Yes.
Because Bass Nectar was on the lineup
That's
as well.
right.
This is
right.
before he was the superstar he is now.
Exactly. I look fondly back on that flyer.
Yeah, it was a good one, man. But I remember at the time you asked me if I wanted to go to Burningman, and sort of the way you explained it to me, I just couldn't think of anything worse. It's like, honestly, I was like, desert?
Yeah. And I do what? And I pay my own way?
Yeah, this doesn't make any
and
sense.
then I don't get paid for playing? Why?
And it took a long, long time for me to catch up and, get onto what you were saying.
That is a standard learning curve, which with most DJs that I invite, not so much anymore because the word is out, but certainly for a long time.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I sort of regret that. But what was it? What was the turning point where you went? I'm a promoter doing Opal, which is your personal club events, expanding it into a massive sound system that it is today.
Yeah.
How did you make the transition?
Well, I like to think most promoters that I know start out fairly idealistic in terms of falling in love with the scene and wanting to manifest your own version of that flavor. That was certainly true for me. I was going clubbing all the time after that first night in 98, almost every weekend in 99, 2000, and then finally in 2001, organized my first event with the promoters whose party I'd been going to religiously. So I wanted to throw events both to raise money for charity at the time, but also to kind of just put my stamp on the local scene. I was attending a lot of underground parties that had a lot of influence by the then just burgeoning Burning Man culture in San Francisco, and kind of wanted to combine some of what I liked about the Spunday scene, which was more the music, and what I liked about the underground scene, which was that it was more artsy, intentional, less commercial, and just the quality of the crowd was a little different.
Yeah.
And so if you go out in San Francisco for any period of time in the underground scene, you're going to hear about Burning Man, and eventually you're going to go because you're like, what am I missing out on? All your friends have gone. And so I went my first year in 2001 and had an amazing time, just went balls to the walls the entire time. And like a lot of people, came back as a Burning Man convert, where I was really inspired by the creative effort that went into what people do out there, be it their camps, their art cars, their costumes, etc. And so the following year that I went to Burningman in 2002, the camp that I was with, we did our own project, which is building a big art car. And so I dove headstrong into that, helping build it over a summer. Some of my Opal parties became fundraisers for that art car project.
Okay.
Because I was trying to help us out, get to
What
our
was
goal.
the name of it?
The art car was with the Garage Mahal camp.
Garage Mahal, fantastic.
Yes, and I think it was like the Ganesh Mobile or the Shiva Mobile or something like that. Yeah, still runs today. So in 2003, after having gone 2 years, the year before, did the art car project, had been throwing Opal events, knew that it could raise some funds. I got approached by a friend who was more of an artist fabricator type, who wanted to essentially partner to make a sound camp with my skills as a fundraiser, organizer, promoter, his skills as an artist to actually build things.
Okay, what's his name?
Rich Martin.
All right, okay.
And so that's how the first Opulent Temple was born in 2003. We partnered with another crew to kind of share labor and resources.
Right.
That was an underground collective called Infinite Chaos. They were kind of more of a both DJ collective and performance-based collective. And so the first Opulent Temple was called the Opulent Temple of Chaos. And it was called Opulent Temple because the theme of Burning Man that year was Beyond Belief, which was kind of a suggestive spiritual theme. And so there's a lot of art projects and sort of narratives that year around temples, churches, spiritual stuff.
Right.
So an Opulent Temple sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
And the Infinite Chaos crew was, the Chaos Connection. So the Opulent Temple of Chaos.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, right, well, we've got obviously there's a few years in between there and now, but how did you sort of manage to introduce a lot of like international DJs onto your lineups, or is this interconnected through Opal? Because obviously, this is how I met you, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure a lot of people have met you through your own club nights, and then got involved with Opulent after that.
Yes.
This is the connection. But how did you manage to get some of the bigger names to commit?
And Opal was one gateway, but certainly not all. There's a lot of DJs who have played Opulent Temple that have never played Opal because they're just too big for our britches, essentially. Right. But I was going after artists that I liked their music and or I knew them from at least meeting them at a Spunday club night.
Right.
And or they just seemed like they would like Burning Man. So our first camp in 2003, we got Sandra Collins to come out, which at that time she was pretty big on the progressive house and trance scene on the West Coast. And I had met her at Spunday nights. She seemed like she would like it, and she loved it. The next year, 2004, we had Defuse and Hybrid was out at Burning Man and played for us. And Scumfrog as well. Scumfrog's another funny example because I just saw him at a Spunday show, and he was just a total character, and I knew he'd like Burning Man, so I approached him. He's American, so it was a little more feasible for him than some of the Euro guys. And sure enough, came out and loved it. Right, 2005, things kicked up a lot because we had both Paul Oakenfold and Tiesto play for us in 2005.
For free.
For free, yes. Yeah. They were both
which is
huge.
Unheard of, really, elsewhere in the world. I mean,
exactly. And I only really got both of them through some luck and subtle manipulation in that I had been going after Oki because at that time he was one of my gateway DJs and producers. That Global Underground New York was the first electronic music CD I ever really listened to over and over again. And this is before either of them had totally crossed over and cheesed out, so for what that's worth. So I was going after Oki. The agent, of course, wanted us to cover costs and do things that we just couldn't do. he had actually been in '99 for another camp, so he at least knew what it was about. And eventually I got a call from the agent that wasn't going to happen because it was going to cost too much money for him to go out there. Meanwhile, I'd been talking to some of Tiesto's people because he had been touring with Spunday and God's Kitchen and wanted to just check out Burningman because he had heard of it. They knew me, we got connected, and so he ended up coming to stay with us with no promise to play, right? We didn't put him on the schedule. But when I told Oki's agent that it's okay, I'm not tripping that Oki's not coming because now we have Tiesto, then all of a sudden Oki found the money to come out.
I'm sure he had the money.
Of course he did, yeah. But he only wanted to spend it when he thought he was going to get kind of upshined at Burning Man by this, Dutch guy he helped get started, really. So, those are just examples. And then it snowballs, right? A lot of great local DJs, of course, played for us, like Bass Nectar. We got connected pretty early to Lee Coombs because he was really connected to the San Francisco scene.
Well, it was Lee. Lee was the first person to get me a show in San Francisco at Hectic Eclectic, which was in a bar. And that was how I connected, Me and Lee were both staying on Felix the Dog's sofa. And that's how we managed to get over here. But yeah, it was Lee's introduction to San Francisco. That's how I got started. Yeah, I'm sure he's introduced a lot of people, a lot of UK DJs to the San Francisco scene as well,
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's it's that friends network, and it kept going. In that, coming into 2006, and in different ways, 7, 8, and beyond, when your kind of roster grows of who you can reference that have played for you, it kind of slowly but surely builds your credibility with both artists and agents. To be like, oh, well, if this guy gone, maybe there's something to it. Maybe I should send my guy out there, or maybe I should go check it out.
A sort of buzz is created,
Yeah.
You have that certainly within the DJ community, or the agents, with their rosters of like, well, maybe you should try them, maybe, And once people get talking,
And for context, for especially the Euro audience that might not fully understand how Burning Man works. Burning Man is not a typical festival that books talent. They really only subsidize the art and the large art pieces that kind of decorate this dry lake bed where the event takes place. But then they open it up for theme camps to come and essentially produce their own stage. And they don't do anything for those theme camps, not even free tickets.
Well, this is it's a little bit of a bone of contention that gets brought up a lot about the allocation of funds, But, I guess it started out as an arts-based thing.
It did. Way more kind of anarchy sentiments with the
guns back in the day. Yeah.
Absolutely. The Cacophony Society, which was kind of an underground arts collective doing stuff in San Francisco, and then these other elements came together to start what it was. But then the ravers, so-called, started showing up because who doesn't like a party in the desert, with art and guns,
fire.
Yeah, exactly. The ability to do fire, be loud, and take drugs and party all night. So Burning Man was never interested in having a music event. They were interested in having an artsy, underground, alternative event. But because they obviously opened the door to other people and communities in the arts world, and the dance music people started showing up. And at first, they actually placed them away from the main event because they didn't like all the thumpa-thumpa. And one night during that period, someone driving from the so-called techno ghetto back to the main event site hit a tent.
Right.
And so they brought it back together mostly for safety, but put them on the outer rim of the city so they wouldn't be so bothersome. And it's evolved because of camps like Opulent Temple into one of the premier music events in the country, if not the world.
The world, yeah.
And that's through absolutely no support from the Burningman org, other than having an event that we could show up at, which we certainly appreciate. But that's sort of not quite good enough for most of us.
But it brings the music element definitely brings a lot to the party. It's right. The music, this is just in my mind, is that the music element brings a lot of revenue in that gets allocated to other areas within that.
Absolutely.
And I guess that's where the bone of contention sort of starts.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We generate a huge amount of revenue for the event, which sells out now every year.
Yeah.
And it certainly sells out in large part. I'm not saying majority, I wouldn't go that far because I don't know, but certainly in large part because people come knowing they're going to have an amazing music experience and there's going to be world-class talent there.
Yeah.
At one camp or another. Now there's many. And everyone comes out and plays for free. Doesn't cost Burningman anything, but obviously they're reaping the benefits of our efforts.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's their prerogative, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, we can choose to do it until we don't want to do it anymore.
That's the point, isn't it? Is that if everyone was that unhappy with it, they just wouldn't do it. And
sure, that is one perspective. I guess my counterpoint to that would be, it's designed and thrives on being a participant-driven event. And so to ask the participants to essentially produce what's cool about the event, but then not air our grievances about what's not cool. I'm personally
do you ever get a chance to bring that up with the main organisers?
Yes, many times. And the short summary of the answer is the music scene, while art from one perspective, is not the art that we support with our event.
Okay. It's a funny one.
I.e., if you don't like it, stop coming. Someone else will take your place.
Which is kind of probably true.
Mm-hmm. It is.
But maybe not to the level. Some of you guys, because there's other camps that all from all over America. They bring such a mad. There's almost like a battle of sound camps in there.
That has developed.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I know that there's a friendly rivalry with Roots Society between every other camp. Tell me about that.
Well,
you don't have to, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Sure. There's inevitably an air of competition amongst creators, whether it's cars, websites, theme camps, everyone wants to be the best at what they do. And so naturally you're looking down the street and seeing what else someone else is doing. And you might admire, respect, or begrudge, whatever the response might be. There's some of that. I think by and large the spirit has remained very cooperative. And I've had most of the main players from some of the other camps that might quote unquote be competition for people, production, or talent play at Opulent Temple and vice versa. Yeah. We certainly help each other with resources as needed. Or, a forklift went out. Oh, we need diesel. We can go to those camps and no one's going to ever say no. So there's that. I think a more recent trend, though, that kind of changes the dynamic is the presence of more millionaire-funded camps, right?
Right.
Because a community-funded camp, like Opulent Temple, which in action means, right, we already know we don't get any money from the org for anything we do, but nor do we have the millionaire backer who's throwing down a big chunk of change. We raise all our money through our fundraising events and through camp members paying dues. Other more recent kind of high-profile camps, say like White Ocean or Robot Heart, are funded by millionaires that don't require the community buy-in to have their creation. And so with that just comes a different dynamic. It's cool they're out there creating art at Burningman. I respect that a lot. But, in some ways I know from direct experience and other things you just hear, it just comes with other problems. It comes with other issues. And there's always some natural resentment because camps like ours are busting ass just to make it happen. And someone else can write a check
to do it. And I guess we'd all like someone just to write a check so we
Wouldn't
can
that
all
be nice?
exhibit
So we can do our art.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That would be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah. If you're out there, benefactor,
Yeah.
please contact us.
Well, actually, that gets us nicely onto a question that Dom Smart, Neurodriver, who I had on the last episode of Lowering the Tone, he asked a question about how's it changed, since you first started to where it is now. How what's your views on the development of Burning Man? I won't dwell too much on Burning Man, but in the same breath, it is fascinating because you are a kind of what I would consider an expert on it, and we have I've had a lot of people on this show that all mention it. It seems it is very relevant, but you have an insight that's a lot more in depth, and also time wise, you've been going since the beginning. We're
2001. I think the
2001.
official beginning was 96. But
Yeah, all right.
long time.
Okay, that's a lot longer than a lot of my friends have been going. So we'll ask a few more questions, but Dom Smart asked about what the development of Burning Man. How do you feel?
Yeah. Well, the obvious answer is it's gotten bigger in every way. My first year, there was probably 35,000. Now there's about 70. And they could sell more tickets if they were allowed to by the BLM. Art cars have gotten bigger. Sound systems have gotten bigger. The status of a lot of the DJ names that show up have gotten bigger. And some of that's a natural evolution, I think, but also is fueled by a certain vein that I kind of referenced earlier, where there's this inevitable connection between art and ego. Right?
Yeah, right.
Where naturally you have an artistic vision and you're referencing what everyone else is doing, and you think it's got to be bigger to be cooler, And so a lot of people go that direction. I would say another vein of change that's kind of related to what I was speaking earlier to with the millionaire things is really a reflection of our Western economic societies, in that there's growing inequality, right? You have way more money at the top and less in the middle and more at the bottom. And how that has played out at Burning Man is more millionaire-funded art cars, millionaire-funded sound camps, and this big contentious issue around what's called plug-and-play camps, where people with a lot of money pay a fat chunk of money to stay at a camp where everything's provided for them, right? Someone else has come in, built the tent, put up the shade structure, provides the meals.
They just walk in and walk out.
Exactly.
Right.
And so that's definitely been against the traditional ethos of Burning Man being about radical self-reliance, because that's about the opposite of radical self-reliance. But there is a lot more of that. People with money who want to check Burning Man off their bucket list.
They want the experience, but they're not really getting the whole experience because they
don't want to work for it.
Well, I've always found that a lot of Burning Man, and what I take away from it, is actually quite the hardship you have to go through to make it through that week. Like when I've played at your camp, I've chipped in, and even though I've raised money, I still want to I feel stupid if I don't help with being involved. But
you're a wanker if you sit in your RV while we're busting our ass, and thank goodness you're not a wanker, Mark.
Thank you. Well, some might disagree. But I think that's you're right. I do agree with you. It goes against the ethos. Is do you want to get stuck in? It's that whole thing of bartering and sharing. If you're
participating.
It is. It's participating in the overall event. As we all know, is that it's nice just to wander up to someone when you're hungry and say, "Oh, do you want some whiskey?" And they give you a burrito or something, whatever it may be.
Whiskey and burrito. You've clearly been to Burning Man.
For breakfast. All right. Well, there's
but let me speak to one other piece, just because it's relevant in that certainly the music trends of Burning Man change with the music trends and general dance music culture in the same way, sometimes slightly ahead, sometimes slightly behind. When I first started, I would say the dominant sound in 2000, 2001, 2 was psytrance and breaks, which are very non-commercial, non-successful music, but that's what was rocking at Burning Man. And that's, partly speaks to the kind of leading edge underground sensibilities that a lot of the participants had. And breaks, being a soundtrack at Burning Man, had a huge impact on why breaks is still a soundtrack in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And, seems like London, Spain, and Australia, not really that many other places in terms
Russia,
of a thriving scene.
I mean, parts of Russia, St. Petersburg and Moscow, it's got decent following.
Nice.
Yeah. Sorry?
Yeah. So the break scene in San Francisco is a direct line from the break scene at Burning Man. And in various degrees, it's gone the other direction. I would say the last couple of years at Burning Man, way more deep house and deep tech. Yeah. And I think that follows a trend of more of the bigger picture musically and dance music.
I think globally, deep house has definitely hit its stride.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's a lot of good deep house, and I guess when you're wasted, sounds kind of cool, But yeah, this sort of leads me on to the kind of the highlights and the lowlights. Now I'm gonna mention this because I've heard you mention it, a tongue-in-cheek thing at a camp meeting 1 year, and what was the bamboo stage?
Yes. Well, every year we have found it important to build something new. Our own crew and creative folks get together to take on a project that adds to our overall stage production, right? So we don't take stage decking and LED screens and there's our camp, because that's lame, and that's not what we believe Burning Man's about. Some camps do that now, and that's lame, in my humble opinion. That said, so we make our own stuff. So every year we come up with a new project. 1 year it was this very overly ambitious, huge bamboo dome structure that we utterly failed in, and it didn't ever make it up, and probably shouldn't have, because it was probably unsafe, and who knows if we could have even taken it down without a small dynamite charge. And that was a lot of money and a lot of time put into something that never manifested. And it's the only time we utterly failed at a project.
Learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's just known as the bamboo disaster.
Right, because this is how I heard it from you. I was like, and I just wanted to put my hand up at the meeting and go, can we just elaborate on this bamboo stage? Because you said it so flippantly, and everyone's like, yeah. And I was like, I didn't know the story. So there you go. So highlights, I guess that's one of the lowlights, probably the lowest.
Yes, definitely one of the lowest. Many, many highlights. My immediate reference for a highlight question is just the kind of musical moments that have come together. Like in 2006, we had Bass Nectar, Stanton Warriors, and Freak Nasty play back-to-back at a time when music was changing, and so Freak Nasty, everyone thought he played breaks, but he played dubstep.
Yeah.
Bass Nectar was kind of in the middle between mid-tempo stuff and breaky stuff, but of course, bass heavy. Stanton Warriors did what they do, and that was one of the nights things just went absolutely mental.
Yeah.
And very memorable. Another night we had Armin van Buuren and Infected Mushroom play live with their live band.
I was there when Infected Mushroom played live.
Yeah. They played back to back, and that was amazing. The night you and Shaq tag team on a Saturday night after the burn.
Yeah, that was one of my highlights.
Absolute highlight.
Yeah.
The first year Carl Cox played for us, which I believe was 2008, was, again, just memorable and magical. And there's certainly more.
Yeah. Carl's a regular.
He is.
Yeah.
He's been fully baptized into the Burning Man cult.
Yeah. he's been involved with you guys for a while, hasn't he? Like, you know,
Yeah.
on all fronts, even raising money and
Yes, Carl has been amazing. We first brought him out in 2008. He came out again in 2009, and then it inspired a Global Underground release that he did called
That's right, yeah.
called Black Rock City.
There was a
or
few.
Black Rock Desert.
There's a little bit of argument. People kind of weren't quite sure what to make with that. Some of the people, I saw a little bit of backlash from some burners because they said,
Yeah.
well, he's monetizing his experience. It's like, well, he doesn't need to. I think he's just kind of making a reference to it rather than exploiting it. But
Absolutely.
that's my opinion.
I think he was paying homage.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and it was done tastefully. He didn't call it Black Rock City. He called it Black Rock Desert. The picture they used for the album cover, you would have to be, very much in the know to know that picture was taken in Burning Man.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, so he did that. He's played some of our fundraisers, big shows for little to no money to help us get out of debt or just show up again. He continues to play our biggest nights out there. He played our annual Wednesday night white party just this past Burning Man. And we're in conversation about maybe collaborating in some form for the 2016 burn. That's still to be determined.
Yeah, well, I guess watch this space.
Mm-hmm.
So with regards to both your entities as Opulent Temple and as Opal, where's the best place for people to connect with you? Not like online.
Yeah, meaning not online.
I mean online.
Yes,
you
online.
know.
Yeah. Well, the big monster Facebook is certainly the easiest. We have a page for Opal Productions. We have a separate page for Opulent Temple because they're really different entities. Of course, I have a fan page for Syd Gris.
Which people should definitely check out.
Absolutely. Like that shit.
That's it. So that sort of leads me on to, once people do connect with you, there's a few people on the Facebook that are asking the obvious question of like, how do they get involved with, either of what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
How do you go around recruiting people and what's the process involved?
Yeah. Well, as it relates to Opulent Temple, it's a great question because of the way it connects to the whole DJ thing out there. We talked earlier, and I get questions every year without fail. How do I play at Opulent Temple, right? And the answer is very simple. Join the camp and work your ass off right next to us, and that's how you get a slot in most cases. Now, if you're more of the international level producer, DJ, and we go after you to recruit you, it's because we love your music and we want to be, we want you to come set the tone for a night at Burning Man. Obviously, that's different. But for most people that want to play Opulent Temple, it's not that hard because all you have to do is work for it.
Just get involved.
Yeah. Don't send me a mix because I won't listen to it. I don't care what you did with who.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Just
Showing
volunteer
up to
time.
work matters. You put in the time and you will work your way up the chain, so to speak. We have about 14 core members who are the main doers in the camp. They're not all DJs, but I would say a majority of them are. And they all started out, as essentially no-name bedroom DJs, but who wanted to get involved. And so they worked their way up, and then they get scheduled in these really amazing opportunities to play a high-profile situation like opening for Carl at Burning Man, going after Infected at Opulent Temple. These kinds of slots that you're just not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah, by sending a mix to a promoter.
Exactly. But you can by working for it. So back to your original question, how do you get involved? Just message us and tell us you want to be involved, and then any event that we throw, show up and help out. Help out with setup.
Highlight your skill, whatever it may be.
Yeah, stay for strike.
Yeah.
Anyone can carry a box. Yeah.
And that is some difficult shit.
Yeah. And, after you've carried things back and forth enough times, then I'll be happy to hear you play.
All right. Well, there you go. That's how to do it.
Yep.
Do you want to, while we're on the subject, we should name check the players, the people involved.
Yeah, that sounds great. Guys like Billy Seal and Winkleman have been with us since like 2004. Billy Casaza, Dulcie, Drew Drop, Icon, Graham, Cause, Brian Williams, Brian Peake, Aliki, Mike Butler, Thor, Isabel, names that all work behind the scenes or in front of the scenes to make it happen. Kimba with the Opal stuff, absolutely, yeah.
And that's with the Opal thing. Is it the same deal? Do people get involved on a volunteer basis to help?
They certainly can. Yeah, Opal's a different animal because most of what we do is just San Francisco club-based events.
Right.
There's not as much kind of manpower needed. Kimba's my partner in throwing Opal events, and musically, she's also a great DJ and resident for us. So there's not as much room, but certainly if people want to get involved on that side, they still can. It's just a matter of being tenacious enough to stay in my face.
Okay. I have one more Burning Man question, which came from my friend Kim Island from Australia. And he said, have you ever thought about doing anything more regional, like regional burns? Because there's a lot of offshoots all over this all over the world, in fact.
Yeah.
You've thought about getting involved in anything regional?
That's a two-part answer. In the Burning Man umbrella of regional events, certainly we'd be super interested in doing something with someone anywhere. My wife is from South Africa, and I have some contacts there to do Africa burns. But walking through the logistics of that, you come across the same hurdles as Burning Man, i.e., how you're going to pay for it, right? So if you're going to have an Opulent Temple presence at a regional event beyond an Opulent Temple DJ showing up, which would be cool, and I'd love to do it, and please fly me out if you want to. If you're going to bring any stuff that is more associated with what we do, it just costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, a lot of the regional events, they prioritize their funding towards the art and not the music, to mimic the mothership events mistake of the same ilk. So the logistics of that become very difficult. How do you actually do that in action? So there's a long way of saying I would love to, but haven't been offered enough just so we can meet our costs, right?
Makes sense,
we're not trying to make any money off something like that, of course. We just want to show up. The second part to that answer is that, in my advanced stage of my involvement with Burning Man, I'm much more interested in creating my own event that touches some of the sweet spots that the Burning Man event does, but doesn't mimic the same mistakes that I see in fairness that their model does. So I'm working on something that won't be a Burning Man event, but will have a lot of what's great about Burning Man. And that's much more where my interests lie.
And that'd be here on the West Coast?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
Working on it.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Well, keep an eye on that. And I guess if anyone wants to follow that, go to Syd Gris.
Yeah.
Like the page.
That's right.
All
like
right.
that shit.
That's it. That's it. It's that's the social media thing. I mean, it's just taken over. I remember the days of flyering to get you standing at doing a club night and people having to give you their email address or even before that their home address so you can mail them like a flyer to let them know what you're doing. It's so easy to access anything now, but it's also that there's a sea of shit out there as well, so you have to wade through it
or pay to be waded through it, which is really annoying,
or have it in people's face.
Yes.
Well, that gets me on to the next question. I'm sorry, I've got so many pieces of paper here and I've got a lot of questions. I'm trying to find the right one. So with talking about the more club stuff, recently I played in Seattle for you, and I've played in LA, and I know that you do these sort of West Coast events. You do both though, don't you? Opal and Opulent Temple.
Mostly Opulent Temple.
Right.
Yeah, Opulent Temple is a brand that is really recognized anywhere burners are.
Right.
And Opal not so much out of the city. And so we've built a nice alternative scenes in these other places where we do a couple big annual events in LA, 3 annual events in Seattle, and continue to try to expand markets, cities that we can do other Opulent Temple events. These follow the same model as our San Francisco events in that they're nonprofit, and all the money raised at these events go towards our 501c, which is the nonprofit entity that we have, to essentially raise the money to produce what we do. We don't pay ourselves out of the party profits to do the events. It's all for the cause.
Well, I don't know how I guess everyone has to make a living through work.
Yes,
and to be able to do this,
Yes, everyone's got a day job. I know I have a day job as a child psychologist. Luckily, it's just part-time, or I wouldn't have time to do all this. And obviously, the Opal events are for me.
Right.
Yeah.
They're your thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, can I ask you one of the questions about, and I guess this is more designed for Opal because it's club-based.
Yeah.
What's the future sound emerging, certainly from San Francisco, and what's getting you excited currently?
Sure.
Or what the way you're moving your bookings towards, what you're feeling at the moment?
I would say I'll try to keep a long answer succinct. Breaks and for a while quality electro house a la Miles Dyson, early Wolfgang Gartner, not Mustang. What's the guy's name that sounds like Mustang? Ford.
Maud Fuster or something. I think that's right.
Yeah, I'm just
got there in the end.
Yes, name dropping producers who were making electro house. I used to like. That was a big part of our sound for a while, but as most know, what used to be electro just becomes total cheesed out EDM.
EDM, yeah.
Big synthy breakdowns, obnoxious fucking squealing sounds, and things that just don't interest me at all. So I think that movement certainly accelerated the cool factor of deep house because people needed to hear something that wasn't bashing them over the head.
A bit more substance.
Yeah, and subtle.
Yeah.
And, sort of the next step beyond that is the sort of deep tech sound and deeper house sound that, like I would say, Robot Heart sort of personifies.
Yeah.
That has a big following. That hasn't really defined what I'm trying to do because that's not much of a dance floor experience, I think, for me. I still certainly have artists I totally believe in, and I still love the sort of fusion tech funk sound that Lot 49 represents, as far as more
techno orientated.
Yeah, but still with breakbeat sensibilities and non-commercial, but dance floor friendly.
Yeah.
Right? That's still a sound I play and I like, but it's a relatively small pool of artists you can bring out.
Yeah, there's not many people that you're either. It's kind of all or nothing. People kind of side with one genre. It's not so many people. Well, I find there's not so many people that just enjoy multi-genre. Who are comfortable mixing up techno within breaks or even this or electro tech, and just that. It's not for everyone. And like you say, it's you can find you're not enough of anything to appeal, which can work against you. I mean, if you've got a big audience and you're smashing it out playing bangers, of course you're going to rock it. Mm-hmm. But if you're trying to bring people to a show and they think, oh well, he does this and he does that, and there's a certain expectation, then you can fall flat in your face as well.
Yeah, and I have shows that I feel really liberated in my greater freedom to book artists I really like, that I'm actually not so dependent on their draw, though obviously that's still important, because it's a show that I just know is going to do well based on everything built around it. So New Year's Eve is a great example. We have built that show to be an experience where we're not bringing in mega headliners. We bring in a lot of art, performances, Burningman crews, reputation, and the whole kink factor of the kink.com association with the Armory, who own the building. and provide some performers. So Stanton Warriors, Meet Katie, Ben Coda, Scumfrog, like that is a Syd Gris loves this lineup example, right? The year before it was Simon Shackleton, Lee Coombs, and we had Scumfrog again on New Year's. Those are great. So some of my club stuff, and those actual work, but you can't do it too often because it just won't work.
Yeah, New Year's Eve is a big night for people to go out. So you got half the battle. You know they want to leave the house.
Yeah,
it's just,
exactly.
Just trying to get people to realise that you're putting on a massive show.
Yeah,
I would actually just like to highlight the acrobats were fantastic.
Yeah, they're from Vaudeville Society.
Yeah,
they're amazing.
Yeah,
total
fantastic.
pros.
And what I liked is when I was playing, I noticed that some of the girls doing what they're what do you call it? It's like sexy gymnasts. I probably don't. I'm sure they wouldn't agree with that. But
that is the official title.
Sexy gymnasts. But I noticed that they were trying to orchestrate their movements to coincide with what I was playing, so they were getting the tempo.
Nice.
And as they came up more and more doing stuff, the timing was better and better and better once they were sort of getting into the groove of it. The girl that I spoke to before, she said, "Oh, this is a collaboration," and I really like that.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I've tried. I mean, as one always has to do as a promoter, to always expand the talent pool with new bookings. For example, we have Wookie coming in January, who's never played for us before. He's one of the few seemingly consistent, fresh names brought up in terms of who's making breakbeat and bass music that people seem to be responding to. Other artists I've gone after, like Hot Sense 82 or Shiba San or even Dusky, they're just out of reach financially, even though we can be pretty competitive.
Dusky have just blown up.
Totally.
Same as Hot Sense mate too. But he was an engineer for a lot of other people, you know that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that he was behind the scenes engineering. So although he's been around for a while, it's just his projects eventually exploded. But yeah, I agree. Names you just mentioned were fantastic. I like particularly like Dusky. I've never seen them live, but I do listen to their mixes and I play a lot of their music on this show. Talking of which, so what are the sort of the DJs and sort of producers doing it for you at the moment? Also, not just internationally, domestic, here in San Francisco, who's been, kind of, I don't want to say climbing out the local scene, but that kind of sounds a bit derogatory because the local scene's actually quite kicking here. So, but you know what I mean.
Naturally, people want to climb.
Yeah,
it's inevitable. Locally, I would say Dirty Bird is still the kind of biggest name that's come out recently as far as a label and the artists that are associated with that label. And they pack out their, I think it's a bi-monthly now, consistently.
And was that still at Mezzanine?
Yes.
What it was,
yeah. And some of their guys, like, of course, Claude Von Stroke and Justin Martin and then Worthy and Christian Martin, they're certainly growing out of the San Francisco scene by virtue of that. In my search for sort of accessible house that isn't too deep and isn't too obnoxious, I stumbled upon what Beatport's now genre checking as indie new disco.
Right.
But really, to me, it's just good house with good bass lines, but a lot of kind of 80s remixes touches. And this is like from Croatia Squad, Me and My Toothbrush, a little more commercial, but Nora Impure, a lot of guys on Enormous Tunes,
right?
Platinum Doug. These are names that I've been buying a lot of their tracks and playing a lot because it's hitting that sweet spot of that kind of groovy, accessible house that, like I said, isn't too banging and it isn't too boring.
I got introduced to Ski Team this weekend. You heard these guys? From Canada. I know it's not something to do with San Francisco, but you were just mentioning things that just float in your boat. I was quite impressed with the the way that they put their sort of sets together. You know, just I had a Shambhala set and I thought it was fantastic.
Nice.
Yep. So with the names that you just mentioned, who are the ones that you're putting on? Because I know Worthy's done a lot of shows with you as well over the years.
We had Worthy at our anniversary last year. I had Croatia Squad at our Halloween gig that we did at the Armory.
Oh, cool.
And that was his San Francisco debut. He was on that bill with Rob Garza from Thievery doing a DJ set.
Okay.
And with Polish Ambassador.
I don't know him.
He's another guy that's kind of on the verge of blowing up to that next level, especially on the summer festival circuit. More mid-tempo, very eclectic, interesting music. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. And I guess these people that feature in your mixes and stuff that...
Yes.
Is that SoundCloud thing?
Yes. A quintessential Syd Gris set, as it often is my Burningman set. So whatever my big Opulent Temple set of the week is, I post it. And my last one from Wednesday night, the night Carl played this past summer, the first half is all that indie new disco that I mentioned, and the second half is all Lot 49.
Yeah, I did notice we were quite represented on that. Thank you for the support, Sid. That's really cool.
Absolutely. Well, that's the best of what I had in my music arsenal that needs to be played at Burning Man.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, would you mind if I asked you a few sort of personal questions?
Yeah.
Just because we have a lot in common, and I know that some people that listen to the show have a similar kind of outlook on music and their careers, and how to juggle a family and try and create something, and just try and sort of get out there with sort of I don't mean family restraints, that's probably not the right thing, but they are kind of restraints. You're not
responsibilities.
Responsibilities. You're not like a single man where you smoke dope all day and just hit the studio all night, and that's how and then that's it. Obviously you got to make a living, and you have 2 children, didn't you?
Yeah.
How do you cope? Basically,
it's tough. It really is. Having the freedom of pursuing your art is really a province of the young and unencumbered in most instances. 20s, early 30s. I got into it at a point in my life that I was already well past my lack of responsibility phase. I didn't have kids yet, but like I said, I was in graduate school and I was pursuing a professional degree, and the art endeavors around throwing parties and DJing were certainly just out of love and passion and hobby for a while. And it was only a sort of side income that was just bonus to whatever I was doing. If I made money, great. Obviously, I didn't have the luxury of losing money, but of course I did at times. But I wasn't dependent on it. As it's developed, I've tried to make it work, this double life of still being in my artistic expression, making enough money to live off it, but still having also my day job as a sort of more reliable income, though it's part-time. I actually work for the city of San Francisco, so the pay is not tremendous, but the benefits are good enough because my kids are covered. So that's been part of the equation. And as I'm sure people hear, the real estate market in San Francisco is one of the worst in the history of all mankind.
It's an absolute joke.
Yeah. And I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. Of course, my wife works. We pay a lot of money a month just for childcare. We want to move out of our 2-bedroom apartment at some point, and it's really hard to know how we're going to do that. Most people in my situation leave the city, as happens everywhere. Young families have to leave the city, and I wouldn't say the suburbs would be our destination, but somewhere less expensive than here, across the bridge to the east or across the bridge to the north, seems pretty inevitable, barring unforeseen circumstances. And I don't know how long I can keep it up.
Warrant living in the city with a family, and
and even just relying on events to be that crucial part of my yearly income to just cover my bills. I've been making it work, and I'm going to continue to try to make it work. I certainly don't make my life easier by doing Opulent Temple still.
Yeah. Well, this gets me on to your sister actually posted a question on my page, and she asked, like, where the hell do you get all this energy from?
Well, mainly it's I still love it enough to have the internal drive to make it happen. I think things you're passionate about, in most cases, give you the drive to make it happen. And when they don't, that tells you something.
Yeah. While they're still exciting you might as well ride that wave, why you still get the sort of, excited about throwing an event, and, when you start scribbling down your ideas of what you want this event to be, I guess when that dries up and it feels like a job, it's probably the time where you question it.
Yeah, or even if it's not a job that makes you money, I think that is more likely to happen before me losing the passion for it. But we'll see. My path forward really has to include enough events to make money to keep doing it. Otherwise, I need to become a full-time psychologist and figure something else out. Have a lemonade stand or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe just get a gig where you just turn up every week and do an hour and a half set at Ruby Sky. I don't know. I'm just use that as an example.
Sure. Yeah, but I still have some fires burning, as I mentioned. If I can get some things rolling, it will fill the need it needs to. For someone who has the responsibilities that I do. Yeah, it's really tough. I'm sure you stress out as well.
Oh, it drives me mental. The stuff that I love doing, like this podcast, I love chatting to friends, I love chatting to colleagues and people that I respect and I like. I love doing it, but, I can't monetize this. It would be lovely to. But then, look, we all wish we could get paid for just doing shit that we love doing all day,
Indeed.
There's definitely a balance of, fulfillment and also making some money, and I totally understand what you're saying is that, when you're investing a huge amount of time in something that isn't making you money, you've just got to question it, especially when you've got a family. Yep. You've got to be sensible about it.
Well, if you're not questioning it, your wife certainly is.
Yeah. This is why I haven't got married. But it still doesn't stop Nadia from questioning it for me. So let's just get on to I'm interested in your plans for 2016. I know that you've mentioned something that could potentially be in the pipeline with Opulent Temple, and obviously I know you're not in a position to elaborate too much on that. But with what you're doing, sort of your own career and personally, what you got in the horizon?
Another thing I've learned the hard way, as far as our events calendar, is that it's really hard to make any money after May and before October. So what that translates to is it's almost not worth throwing an event from May to October, because it's probably going to just break even or lose money, except in the most obvious of slam dunk circumstances, which don't come along very often. And that's because the festival circuit, as I would imagine it has in Europe as well, has just grown every year. There's just more and more campouts, more and more festivals. And so people spend their money, their time, they get real focused on
getting out to sea.
Exactly, doing the festival thing. And then you also have kind of Burningman fundraiser season, and that starts filling up the events calendar. And if you accidentally end up on the same night as one, even if your lineup is pretty kicking, burners who are a big part of my core audience, they're going to go to the Burning Man party often more than your cool club event with 2 awesome DJs you booked. That's just the reality of our market. So in January, I have Wookie. In February, I have an all-night tag set between Simon Shackleton and Jesse Scumfrog.
I saw this advertised, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be wicked.
That'll be a good one.
March 5th is our Opal 14-year anniversary with the Crystal Method.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Oh. And then April, I got to figure something out, but I know a lot of my time will go into our annual Opulent Temple Sacred Dance White Party that we do in San Francisco. That's a big production. And but I got to figure out something I can make money on too. So I'll try to figure out a good April show. And then, like I said, May to September-ish, I'll do some Opulent Temple stuff, but I won't do a lot of Opal stuff.
Right.
We'll do our annual white party in LA. We'll do Seattle. I'm trying to get one rolling in Boise.
Oh, yeah.
And in Austin.
Boise's got a great scene.
Sure does. It does.
People don't understand this little kind of out the way town.
Yes, a red state enclave.
Unbelievable. I played there on a Thursday night a few weeks back, and people come out.
Mm-hmm.
There was they had a festival called Aesthetic Evolution.
Yep.
And that was fantastic. Yep. One of your guys, the fire guy,
Greg Briggs.
Greg was involved in the fire element of it, and very
Greg
good
Briggs
show.
is an awesome human being.
Yeah, definitely. So there was something that you just to backtrack slightly, because you're talking about the summer stuff. You used to be involved with Love Fest, which was a massive. Well, it was connected originally to Love Parade Berlin.
Yep.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that was about and what happened?
San Francisco is and was the perfect place to host a Love Parade event in America. And I was part of a group of people that got it launched in 2004, and it was licensed through the Berlin event as a Love Parade. And that was when they were licensing events outside the Berlin event much more. Like there was one in Chile and Tel Aviv and a couple of other places, I believe. So the first Love Parade was in San Francisco in 4, 5, and 6. And then they had some internal changes on their side. And I think Dr.
Mott.
Thank you.
Yeah,
what's his name?
Dr. Mott.
Dr. Mott? Was that the...
M-O-T-T-E, is that the right one?
Mate.
Mott. Oh, yeah.
Mott, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your German's better than mine.
Yeah. And I'm sure the team, I think for whatever reason, they had to essentially sell the rights, and a new sponsor came in, and they didn't want to renew licenses in other events they had done them. And so we kept the event going. We just changed the name from Love Parade to Love Fest, and then later Loveolution. And we kept it going in 7, 8, and 9. Our 2009 event was absolute mayhem and amazing, but we kind of outgrew the site that we were at, which was Civic Center in San Francisco. It was very packed. No major incidents, but it made the cops nervous. It's a big open event that anyone could walk up to. So we were in negotiation at how to do our 2010 event when the tragedy happened at the Love Parade, Germany, that summer, where people were crushed, I think, in a tunnel.
A wall came down, I think, and then they got, all just... Yeah.
And that really kiboshed our ability to do it in the city again.
Right.
And so in 2010, we actually moved the event to Oakland in the parking lot of the Coliseum. And we knew it was going to take a huge hit with the attendance, because a parking lot in Oakland is not as sexy as downtown San Francisco by any stretch.
Right.
And the parade was a kind of sorry excuse of moving stages in a circle around the event site instead of going down Market Street, which is the heart of the city here. But it was only like $20 to get in, with an amazing lineup, because the DJs playing the after party, which was on site there at the big Oracle Arena, were playing during the day too. And we still just totally lost our ass on the event. Yeah. And we still owe money on that.
Just cut your losses.
Yeah. We knew Oakland wasn't going to work again. And we tried to come back in the city in 2011, and the city just put up too many hurdles. The cops didn't want it. And so a great event was sadly killed by all those factors.
Well, I remember when I played at it, and it was just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Seeing people, as far as the eye could see,
yep.
Especially San Francisco. So it was very flamboyant, should we say.
Absolutely.
And it was a real sight. It was lovely. And that was when it was in the Civic Centre, and you pulled up, and that was pretty amazing. But, like you say, is that when they can reference a tragedy at the same event, even though they're different, in another city, it's like, of course they're going to throw up every boundary they can,
Yes, and they did. Yeah.
Well, that's a shame.
Yep.
It's a shame. So, right, I've got, but just before we wrap up, anyone you want to give a shout to, because obviously you're you're part of such a big team and stuff. Is there anyone that we haven't mentioned?
Sure.
I know you mentioned a lot of the OT stuff, but is there anyone else?
Well, my wife Samantha for being patient and understanding with my artistic pursuits and tolerating the heart palpitations that come with trying to figure out if you're going to lose your ass on a party or if you're going to make lots of money and everything's going to be great. So
do you get really stressed out before a party, or you got that under control now?
I mean, I am not immune. I still stress out and I still take it personally when not enough people come, even though I should know better. I still can't help it. But a big shout out to my sister Gina Grandy, who helped me with Opal from the very first strike and returning large heavy objects to dusty storage bins at 5 a.m, both of us completely knackered. And she's still in the mix. You saw her New Year's Eve
with a new
taking
camera.
pictures. Yeah. So Gina's amazing. I mentioned Kimba and the OT crew, and certainly, I guess a shout out to the San Francisco scene for supporting us for so long. There's not many promoters still throwing parties that were throwing parties when we started in 2001, and some of that's because they're smart and moved on. Some of that's because they didn't have success, but. Either way, we're certainly blessed to still have the support of enough party people to keep going.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. And right, before we wrap up, can I get some stings out of you? This is Syd Gris. You're listening to Lowering the Tone with me, Katie, on blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
That'd be great if you could.
Yeah. This is Syd Gris. You're listening to Lowering the Tone with me, Katie.
And let's get another one for good measure.
Okay. This is Syd Gris. You're listening to Lowering the Tone with me, Katie.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming and do this. I know you've got a lot to do, as you've been explaining.
Monday mornings are good.
But thank you so much. And thank you for the weekend. That was an absolute monster show. And,
Anytime, man.
Yeah. All right, man. Take care.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Episode 12, done and dusted. I wish I could get more of these shows out. Unfortunately, life just seems to be getting in the way. I'm going to do my best though. I've got a lot of people lined up to do interviews with. And also Ben Code is going to come on board at some point this year and host some shows himself. Switch it up a little bit. I need to give Andy at Made Interactive a massive shout. He's responsible for putting the website together, loweringthetone.london. Head over there and you can get all the information you need regarding the show. Alright, I think that's it for this episode. Take care.
I find it looks the same, but everything has changed. I find remembering gets harder every day. Sometimes I still believe who I pretend to be. Sometimes all everything's exactly how it seems. Exactly how it seems. I see the color of your eyes has turned to gray.
The end.
Thanks. I don't know where we're going after that.
Right.